Hello to both sides of the room. I'm equal in my love of both of you. So this is, as the slide said, I talk about imprecise network monitoring tools. It emerged out of some things I was doing, especially during a period of time during the summer when all of the students in Irish, or all the final year students in Irish schools, get told whether they're going to university or not. And this all kicks off at 6 o'clock in the morning when they log into a website and enter their number, and they get told whether they've got the college place they're going for. And it's all supply and demand. They've got a certain number of points from the grades they got in their exams, and the courses cost X number of points. So when there are thousands of 17, 18-year-olds going online at 6 o'clock in the morning, they turn to social media to talk about their experience. And what I noticed was that this website, which gets a lot of traffic, was suffering 12 months ago. I'm there because my network delivers the traffic to the site, so I'm there to make sure that my network doesn't fall over, and that if the story does make the front page of the newspapers the next day, I can tell my boss that it wasn't my fault. Searches on to see what the user experience was. And last year it was terrible. Things fell over all over the place. And I was, okay, well, what else can I do with this particular tool and other tools like it? So this is a wander through that, some thoughts and some findings of my own, and obviously I'd be very interested in any feedback or anything else you guys have to say. There are many caveats to this talk, many caveats to this talk. Imprecise. This will not get you up to the moment real-time information. Well, sorry, it will get you up to the moment real-time information on your network, but it's possibly going to be real-time information coming from people who have no idea what they're talking about. It's a secondary information source at best, possibly tertiary. There are other words that I can never remember, quaternary, it gets worse. Vital point. Very often wrong. More times than they're right. The wisdom of crowds, I think the internet has shown, yeah, not so much. So do not go home and turn off all your other tools. Do not go home and turn off Nagios. Do not stop looking at Systog and go, a search in TweetDeck will do me fine. People will laugh at you. It will be embarrassing. You will lose your job. So this is an imprecise tool. All information in the world flows through Twitter, ladies and gentlemen. The excellent XKCD wrote this. I think there was a what if the week I was writing this talk for HEAnet, which is where I first gave it, and I'm like, well, I can just put this slide up and just walk away because he's already nailed it. And the great thing is that was a 5-minute lightning talk. I have much more time. I could put that slide up for 3 seconds at HEAnet, and now I can just leave it here and wander off stage. Facebook is also an imprecise tool. Now, most of what I'm about to say is going to be about Twitter. I am fully of the opinion at this point that all human information now flows through Twitter. This is also a bad thing. But if you can get your search terms right, if you can look at it, it's a lot more stream of consciousness, and it's a lot more useful for what I'm talking about this morning. Facebook is not as useful. Now, there are things you can do with Facebook, and I'll go through some of the use cases, which are handy, but really a lot of what I'm talking about is about Twitter, because it's a much easier stream of information to dip in and out of. But like any fast-flowing stream of information, it's also very easy to drown yourself in it very quickly. So, one of the other thing here about, just 1 second. This was a talk originally written for an almost entirely academic audience, NRENS, at the HEAnet conference. Obviously here, the NRENS and academics are vastly outnumbered by people who are in this for the money. So, allegedly, I hear there's money in networking. I've never found it myself, but then again, I work for a registered charity. So there will be some differences and some stuff added in. There's also some assumptions I'm making about commercial ISPs, and please feel free to tell me I'm wrong. I've never worked for one, so it's this strange alien world. So first off, if you're doing this, if you decide, okay, we're going to look at social media and things like that. First question is it someone's job? I believe, because the internet tells me, that a lot of commercial operators have dedicated social media customer service teams. There's an incredibly perky person who works for Vodafone Ireland who crops up and goes, hey, I'm here today to solve all your problems, or alternatively, ignore you. But this is a big thing these days. Now, there's no expectation for NRENS to have customer service teams that are paying attention to social media. I keep on telling NRENS that I talk to that if they continue to bury their head in the sand and ignore social media, it will go badly for them. And I think that message is beginning to get through to a certain extent. But then again, there are still people in both commercial ISPs and NRENS who feel that movable type is possibly a step too far as regards technology. And really, why aren't we all still using X25? So the bigger question, though, is customer service is fine, but we're talking about engineering here. And I don't know of anyone who has engineering staff who have in their job description run a search in TweetDeck. And it's a question of whether we are now at a point where it should be. It's not going to be the only thing they look at, but should this be something that people are doing as part of their job, in addition to looking at syslog and Nagios and everything else? And so, or maybe it's just a case-by-case basis. And the use cases I was talking about for NRENS, is $VLE down for everyone or just me? There are a lot of people who use services like Blackboard. These are hosted far, far away. We need to peer to get there. And as Bill just mentioned, both with remote and local peering, there are all sorts of fun things that can happen to you. And indeed, just using pure transit, there are all sorts of fun things that can happen to your packets. If I have reports from some of my clients that their students are having problems getting to Blackboard, for instance, or $VLE, as we prefer to call it, because apparently we can't just claim that they have problems a lot, I can then go onto Twitter and do a search for it and see if some people in the UK or the US, primarily the UK, are having problems as well. Because it gives me a much clearer view than trying to piece together what's happening between my network and AM6, which is where we peer with Blackboard. Has the campus lost power or just connectivity? I see one of my clients fall off the internet. I can go onto Twitter, and if people are complaining about all the lights being out in the library, then I know there's a bigger problem. If they're just complaining about their inability to update Facebook about what they saw someone wearing last night, then I'm fairly sure it might be a network problem. And a lot of local computer service departments, certainly in Ireland, are now on Twitter. They have information updates they send because they've realized it's a great way of talking to their students, their clients, their users. They're also on Facebook quite regularly as well. But they will send these updates out that they might not have thought to tell the HEAnet NOC because, well, it's not like we're important. But they will put this out on Twitter. And so I follow, every time I see an account from one of these providers, I will follow it. And that's from my personal account, not from the HEAnet official account, because they're two very, very different things. So this is what I'm thinking might be use cases for commercial operators. Again, I have never done this. I might be entirely wrong. So routing issues to places that aren't really big and obvious. It's fairly easy to tell if you're having an actual routing issue to one of the major content providers. But routing issues to smaller places who you may be able to go online and go, okay, I'm seeing a problem there. Is it a problem with me or is it a problem with their peering? Do some searches to see if people are having issues reaching them. And you're obviously talking about kind of mid-tier content sources or otherwise here, because the very small ones people probably aren't going to tweet about, or there isn't going to be enough of a critical mass to tell. Increased latency is something which can be quite subtle to detect from a network operator point of view, But if you suddenly have hordes of users who are finding a route to somewhere slow or a connection to somewhere to be slower than it was last night, then maybe there's some information there that can be gleaned. And CPE-facing interface issues. So I think what we're talking about there is trying to define whether the issue is local or remote. It's similar to the lost power idea. It's okay. Is that a problem with my connection to the either to the CPE, or is it a problem somewhere else? Is it something that one of those binary network issues where something fails and it could be this or it could be that? It's possible that if there's a big enough customer base who are affected by it, that they may have tweeted about issues. Unintended consequences of a change. Obviously, none of us have ever deployed a change which did not do exactly what we wanted it to do, ever. And we're all liars. So one of the things there is, if you are making a large change network-wide, then unintended consequences where your network monitoring tools may or may not have informed you of it, but your users are affected. And I'm pretty sure some of you have user bases big enough to be very noticeable on Twitter. And it's all a question of, and we'll talk about this in a moment, of refining your search terms. Configuration hints. Like any tool, you got to configure it. Find the relevant official accounts and follow them. Now, for me, this is computer service departments, things like that. For you, it might be large clients. It might be associations you're dealing with. It might be large content providers, things like that. Reactive searches. This is not a... Yes, you can set up all sorts of things and you can script things to do searches, but really, generally speaking, you're searching on a case-by-case basis. You're searching in reaction to something, or you're searching because you've just done something and you think that there might be information there. And don't just search locally. Not that you can really with Twitter. It would be, obviously the default search is the entire of Twitter. But the internet's a big place and there's an awful lot of information out there. Filtering is also important, as it is with any system. Lots of noise. Lots and lots of noise. This most recent year, to go back to my original story with the CAO, I again was sitting there at 6 o'clock in the morning because I am a dedicated network operations manager, looking at this. And the vast majority of the tweets about this particular process were, oh my God, I am still so drunk from last night. What the hell am I doing up at 6 o'clock in the morning to check my college places, etc., etc. But there were a few tweets in there about site much better this year. And in fact, there were few enough tweets talking about issues with the site that I knew that had to be local issue. A local user issue, either inability to use the internet or a dodgy ISP. But there was huge amounts of noise that wasn't talking about actual user experience. Yeah, many students really complain about having to study, and then they'll whine so much when they suddenly can't because they've left the essay to the last possible moment, and that fills it up as well. It's basically still noise. We've also got problems with institutional acronyms in your searches. DCU, Dublin City University. It's a DC football team. It's also DC Comics Universe. It's a few different things, but there isn't a better search term that you have because the students in North Dublin who attend this university aren't going to go, that's also the name of a popular comics universe. I'll choose something different. It's DCU as far as they're concerned, so that's the thing there. So that's really it. Like I said, it's fast. This is just an awareness-raising point. This information is out there. Like I said, all human information flows through Twitter. Facebook has a few official pages where there's stuff, and when you talk about following official accounts, this is where Facebook can really come into its own because people will post information there and you can set up alerts for that. But Twitter is the big thing. It's all there, and don't ignore it. Spend some time on it. Talk to your engineering staff about it. And I'm slowly getting to a point now where my team are going, maybe Brian's not actually crazy with the fact he sits there on Twitter all day. There's a large company for whom my wife works, who may have something to do with today's badges and lanyards. Their life got quite interesting recently when the latest update for Google Authenticator for iPhone decided that actual tokens and information were surplus to the app's demands. A lot of people using Amazon Web Services use Google Authenticator to log in.
She works for a customer service team, and they got obviously a lot of calls all of a sudden about why can't I access my AWS servers. And she, because, you know, we're very newlywed, so we both listen to each other all the time still. And she went, oh, Brian keeps on talking about why I should search on Twitter. And so she did. And she was getting information back for her customer service team and for her engineers on user experiences in relation to Google Authenticator and what people were having with AWS. So this will not solve all your problems. It will not replace all your alarms, but it is certainly something to think about. That's me. And if anyone has any questions or wishes to point out how I'm entirely wrong about commercial operators, please do. There's one over there.
Maybe just an amusing anecdote related to this. So I was involved in a data center refresh for a large bank. This bank required them to turn all their cash machines off at midnight on a Friday night. You can probably see where I'm going here, but there was a lot of tweets of those bastards have not allowed me to get money and I have to walk home. So it's and they actually during the event they actually had a team of people kind of responding and trying to help out. And at BT we have a tool called DebateScape that kind of we sell to customers who help find what's going out in the social world. And it's a very popular product, and it's reasonably priced. Contact your account manager.
Yeah, BT Ireland probably don't sell it though, so you know.
Okay.
Lucian Taylor, Oxford Information Labs. We depend very much upon monitoring tools. Nagios is our life. In fact, all we want to do is leave it alone. We never want to be interrupted by Nagios. And I like the idea of this as a monitoring tool. It is more of a diagnostics, I think. You called it a reactive monitoring tool rather than actually ticking away in the background. I dread the idea of Twitter all day in my life as well as at night, you know. So I'm interested in what you use. TweetDeck, I mean, this is all terrible stuff to work with, you know.
At my desk in the office, I have TweetDeck. I have the various columns for my own accounts that I post to. And then I'll have 2 or 3 searches fairly permanently. I have a search for HEAnet running all the time. I have a search for a couple of other things that I would run. And then at the point of an incident or me finding out something, or, you know, for instance...
How do you get notified? I mean, that the monitoring thing. I mean, how do you actually get notified? How do you get that push out to you?
Well, I mean, so again, the search will search everything. So, for instance, I have it sits there in a column in TweetDeck. So, yes, I have to go and look at it. Now, there's stuff I could do, and it's a slow process. I could set more things up, and I could probably get some sort of email or something.
Well, that's I'm interested in, because I think there is a gap in the market for that.
Well, I think you need to talk to Neil, clearly. Who now apparently also works in marketing, joining Will in that August. But no, I mean, it is a case of there's more things to be done there from my point of view, but at the moment it's just searches in TweetDeck.
Okay,
Tim Chan. So we have a number of people in our university that work on tools that look at Twitter and try and determine or predict things like how markets might move depending on what people are talking about, or the moods of certain people in certain areas with things like Arab Spring and so on. Do you think here, you're talking about which Twitter thing to use, do you not think there's scope to do something more passive, which is just sitting there monitoring Twitter to do this, rather than waiting for something to go wrong and looking at Twitter to see what's going wrong?
Almost certainly. I do not claim to be expert on necessarily the tools here. Part of what I'm kind of doing is just going, look guys, this information is out there, especially for engineering teams. What I'm primarily looking at here is reactive things, but I don't see this presentation or my points of view at the moment as the final word on it. I see the fact that I've encountered this and I didn't see anyone else talking about it in these fora. So it's to start the conversation rather than to end it or even give the definitive answer on it. So.
I share your distaste for using Twitter unless it's absolutely necessary. So I think something that abstracts that away from people is probably a good thing.
Sorry, I should be very clear. I love Twitter. I absolutely adore it. And this now gives me an excuse to have TweetDeck open all the time on my desktop. I don't have my hashtag up. I don't have my username there just for kicks. I do really. This is what developed out of this because I use Twitter a lot, and I got to that point.
Okay,
sorry,
Dave.
Keith. This took longer than I thought it would.
Just very quickly, David Friedman, Clarinet. For those of you who don't know, Twitter lets you expose the results of a search via an RSS feed. So if you've got an RSS reader, either integrated into an application or one of the web-based ones, you can subscribe to the results of a search. Myself, I have an RSS feed with a permanent search, and the results of that search I actually have popped up if something appeared, because it's not like a commonly used thing. So yeah, it's pretty easy to use, and I don't have a Twitter client.
Cool.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
Cool. Thank you very much.